Hello, welcome to this painting channel. My name is Carrie and I'm going to show you how to paint an octopus today. Let me show you this. Something like that. I'll make it really bright and colorful and fun. So I used to teach paint and sip painting classes in Hawaii, and now I'm a landlocked lady with a little more time on my hands though. So I thought I would go ahead and see if I could show you guys how to do some of those paintings I used to teach on the beach, by the bars, in the fun places in Waikiki, painting, showing tourists how to paint, and it'd be a fun souvenir people could take home with them. And I've taught traditional drawing and painting classes too for like 15 plus years. So I am hoping we can make a fun little channel together where if you want to paint and sip style, meaning easy, relaxing, maybe you've got your coffee with you in the morning, or maybe you've got a glass of wine in the evening, something like that. However, just something that you can kind of do relaxed, painting along with me. Paint along, that's the idea. So I want to walk you through some supplies and then we'll get started and we'll paint this lovely, lovely octopus once again. So first and foremost, what you need some brushes. Pretty much, I like to say small, medium, and large. Can you guys see that? Yes, you can. All right, so how do you figure out what's small, medium, and large? Well, honestly, it just depends on the canvas that you're painting on. Small, medium, and large is in proportion to the canvas. If this was a giant canvas, this would probably be my small or medium. If it was tiny, this guy could be actually medium to big, and I might need some tiny, fine little hairbrush. And I do have a couple of those laying around. But yeah, just to get started, small, medium, and large. I like the flat ones for the medium and large. And then I have a flat there too, but over here, handy, I'm cheating, I guess, I've got a little bit of the pointed round one too. So that can be helpful. Sometimes I just do this for the paint and sips. I would do something like that, give people those. And it can be helpful to have more than one of each kind for just yourself at home. We never did it for paint and sips, but at home it's nice because then you just find yourself cleaning brushes less. If you have maybe one big brush that's for blue tones, cool tones, and one that's for yellows and brights and warms, those two things are going to mix and mess each other up if you're going back and forth with the same brush. But maybe if you have one for each, or darks and lights, that kind of a thing. So it's up to you how many brushes you want. If you're on a budget, just get, I'll take that one out. Just get small, medium, large, get one kind of pointed one. Don't mind the fact that mine's a little lopsided right now. It'll get fixed once I start painting. And then you need something to paint on, of course, your canvas. This one I actually was another canvas that I didn't like. I didn't like the way the painting was going, so I painted gesso over it. I might talk about gesso more in another video, but if you ever have a canvas that's not going so good, why waste the money going out to buy another new one? Just gesso over this. Gesso is essentially like chalk in the form of paint, and you can kind of repurpose, refurbish, reset any painting. So that's what I did here. And because we were doing the octopus, I decided to do the nice long ways horizontal. I thought that would give him more room. I had done this one in a painting class, but you see how like all his little limbs, flippers, what are they called? Somebody help me out who's like a marine biologist. Yeah, his arms, that's probably what they are, arms, right? They all got kind of squishy. We had to kind of make it work in this canvas format, which is a pretty typical canvas format, so nothing wrong with it. But for the octopus, I found this old canvas, sort of reset it by painting it over with a couple layers of gesso, let that dry, and now we're ready to go, and then we'll have a little more room for his limbs. So brushes, canvas, old mug, water cup, whatever for water. I know it looks like I have black paint in here. That's what I had last time. Right now it's just got clean water in it. Something to paint on palette wise, meaning to put your paints. This is an old thing I've used for years. I love it because it's plastic, which means once the paint dries, I can usually just peel it right off, which is kind of satisfying too, right? but obviously I'm lazy and I let it be really messy a lot of times. So this is my palette, but you can use a paper plate, you know, just something disposable that you have on hand. I mean, it's good to be green. We don't want to create extra waste, right? But if you have some sort of extra paper plates or just even plastic plates left around that aren't doing anything, why not use them for your paints, then give them an extra life that way. So however, whatever you need to do, you can go extremely cheap or you can get a palette. And now let's talk about paints. I've never done an unboxing video. This is probably the closest I'll come, but I wanted to open this brand new right here with you guys. I thought it'd be fun. So this is one of my favorite sets from Winsor & Newton. They're kind of good quality, but they also make some affordable student type stuff too. So this is like 21, 22 bucks on Amazon. Not bad at all. I'll see if I can figure out how to add a link. But it kind of has just about every color you really need, because you can mix everything else from these. So that's what I love about it. I even feel like there might be an extra yellow here. They've got a lemon yellow and a cad yellow. The lemon yellow just has a tint of kind of green on it. So that'll be actually really nice for when we're drawing like ocean colors, getting some light coming in the ocean, to have a slightly greenish yellow that won't mess up. If you have a warm yellow, it can mess up with, you know, blues and greens. So that's something we'll talk about more. But theoretically, you just need your primaries, right? Your yellow, your red, your blue, and you can make everything from it. Well, that's great in theory, but in reality, paints are made from real things in real life. It's not just the theory. It's not just the color wheel. It's not working with light. We're working with actual earth and materials that get put in a binder to create the paints. And very rarely do we find 100% pure medium blue or pure medium red. Almost all the pigments are slightly warm shade or cool shade of the primary colors. So in this case, we have this cad red. That's a little bit of a warmer red. So I would never want to make a purple, because we all know that red plus blue makes purple. Well, if I take a red that's already on the warm side and I mix it with a blue for purple, it's going to be really kind of a dull purple, kind of just yucky and slightly gray and not warm. But here we've got this permanent red that's a little closer to magenta. That's one thing that's maybe missing from this. I wish it was a true magenta that they had in this mix. But that is slightly on that pink side. And so if you mix that with a purpley, I should have pointed to this, to the purpley blue, you'll get a really luscious, beautiful purple. Now, same thing, say I want to make a green, but I want it to be more of a teal. Well, I need to go for the cerulean blue, because that's slightly cooler, and I'd mix it with a lemon yellow, and that would get me that lovely turquoise or teal color. So for purples, I want the other ones, the warmer shades for the cool tones, for some sort of turquoise or teal. Cerulean plus the lemon yellow would be good. This green, the phthalo green, actually is like one of my best friends. So I'm glad it's in here, even though theoretically I could probably get it by taking my cool blue, my cerulean, mixing it with my lemon yellow. But notice they're both kind of light. So this phthalo green is nice to have because it's already nice and deep. And I'll tell you, for turquoises and teals, I actually don't even do what I just said. I take that phthalo and I just mix it with some white, and it comes out luscious and lovely. And I'll show you guys here in a minute. Sometimes a little blue if I want it to be a little more on the blue tone, sometimes a little yellow if I want to lighten it a little bit. So yellow ochre, nice, good stuff for, you know, earthen tone skins. That's, I guess, one other thing I wish was in here if I'm doing portraiture. I like a good burnt sienna, and that's not in here, but burnt sienna can kind of be made by this, plus some red, plus, I don't know, maybe just a touch of the raw umber here, which is another darker brown here. So they don't have black, notice. Theoretically, you can make black with these. I can show you how to do that, but also sometimes it's handy to just have black. So up to you. This particular painting, besides the tiny little dot in its eye, there is no black, and we can get that dark color for the dot in the eye, so it's not a big deal. But yeah, so this is a great range of colors to start with. If you want even more, I might just get the magenta, the burnt sienna, and then a pure black if you're using a lot of black, just to make life easier on yourself so you don't have to mix it. But otherwise, this is perfect. Like I said, 21, 22 bucks. And there you go. So I'm going to start putting those out here over on my palette. And then hopefully you've got some paints and you can do the same. Get yourself a palette, put your paint colors out, get water cup, brushes, canvas, something to lean it on. I have an easel, this guy right here that's leaning on, but you don't even need that. You could just, you know, pile up some books on your kitchen table and lean it against that. Whatever works for you. So, take a break, pause, get yourself ready. Pause the video here if you need to, and then we'll come back and we'll start painting together. Okay, so we're back. You'll notice I put out all the colors except I left out the yellow ochre because I don't want to waste paint. And you know what? There isn't really any yellow ochre needed in this particular painting. And if I change my mind, I can always squirt a little out, but I don't want to squirt it out if I think I'm not going to use it. This is great though for beach scenes. If you want to make sand, you just mix white and this. It makes a lovely sand color, especially for Hawaiian kind of more golden sand beaches. But anyway, so otherwise I have all my colors out here and now I'm going to put them down to my side, but I just wanted you guys to see. It's a good range. I think it's a great set, especially for kind of beginnings, getting started. I honestly think as you get more advanced, you actually sometimes need less colors because you learn to harmonize and limit your palette. And you know, the more you have kind of just mess things up, overwhelm things. So this is good because it gives you enough range, you know, that it's not difficult to mix colors at the beginning, but it's also still limited enough. It has your essentials. It doesn't get too much confused. So check that out. You'll see how much I gave myself. I can always pour out more if I need it, but again, I'd love to not waste paint, right? Because art supplies are expensive. I did pour a little bit more blue and green because I know I'm going to use a lot of that, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to start with our background color. So since it's YouTube and we have a little more time together, I think I actually want to make a more interesting background. It's this one. I had a pre-mixed turquoise teal color that I did for the paint and sippers. And you know, again, they're drinking their Mai Tais. They're having fun. They don't want to have to think too hard. And maybe you are too. So you can simplify this for yourself as well if you want. But if you want to add a little bit more interest, and since we have a little more time, and again, you can pause whenever you need to on this video, we're going to just give it a little gradient. I want it to go a little bit lighter at the top, maybe slightly more yellow as if the light's coming in. You know, you're under the ocean and you see the light, and then go a little darker turquoise teal with a little more blue. So there's a really quick, easy way to make that nice ocean gradient. And I don't think it's too hard at all. And I think it's worth it if you're at home painting this. And by the way, that's kind of my goal for these, is to do paint and sips at home. Paint and sip for introverts, or maybe people who just don't want to have to go anywhere, or you would like to just invite your friends over to the party and put this up on the TV and have a group, small group, 3, 4, 5 of you. And hey, then you're just only paying for your supplies and not the instruction. Not that the instructors aren't worth it. I was one, so they absolutely are worth it. But I want you guys to have some options, and I thought this would be fun too. So my goal, just so you know, is to get this done in about an hour, so that with places where maybe we have to pause and let things dry just a touch, or maybe you need to refill some of your supplies, get some more paints out, or just you want to, you know, take an intermission, chat with the friends if you are doing it with a small group at home. I would like to do the video in an hour so that the whole painting can be done in somewhere between an hour and a half to 2 hours. So that, again, nice and relaxing. Essentially, I want to do this here in real time so you can just follow along. But like I said, with a couple spots where maybe you pause to refresh supplies or just let a layer dry or something. And I'll let you know when that might be a good spot. But anyway, without further ado, thank you for listening to me yammer on. Let's get started. So I'm going to have this down here. You guys won't see it as much, but I can look at it for my reference and pull it up every once in a while. Also, I mean, I think it's good to get a picture of an octopus on your phone too. If you want to maybe change the color scheme a little bit, or you just want to like have that extra element of realism, the best thing you can do is look at good reference, right? But also, I want this to be simple, easy, fun. You don't have to. It's absolutely up to you. Okay, so we are going to get started with a nice, beautiful background layer to make it look like the ocean. And here's the trick. So I got a little bit of water on my brush, not too much, like, you know, I don't want it dripping everywhere. Maybe one drip if I kind of shake it. but I need a little bit of water just to keep things sort of smooth and flowing. And I am going to dip, let's see if I can show you guys, first into my ultramarine blue. Now that is one of the blues that's on the warmer shade of things, so it's ever so slightly purple. So it's not going to be the best for making a teal, which is what I mostly want this to be, right? But remember I said I have that beautiful phthalo green. So I am going to put this just down at the bottom, 1/3 or so of the canvas. Notice I have to keep dipping into my water. All the paints are different. All the places you live are different, right? I noticed that when I lived in Hawaii, I had to wait a lot longer for layers to dry in between because there's so much humidity in the air. But it made this kind of thing go a little easier, flowing smoothly. So, you know, there's so many factors here. Well, the humidity in the air, the temperature, all that will kind of tell you how much you gotta go, how thick, I should say, how thick you gotta go with this paint and how much time you have before it dries. So I want to get it wet enough that it's not going to just like immediately dry on me, because I know I want to blend it a little bit, but I also don't want it to take forever, and I don't want to like just use all my tube of paint on this one canvas. So I try to make a good, you know, even coverage, even flow, but then I'm gonna move on. I'm not gonna worry about perfection. I'm even just gonna wet it a little more, because I actually now live in a very dry climate, and I can tell it's drying a little quicker than I would like it, a little quicker than this painting used to for me back in the day. Okay, so I'm lazy. When I can do things fast, I do. I just dipped right into the green. Normally, if you're switching colors, you gotta rinse out your brush or switch to a different brush, right? But these are all gonna mix together anyway. I know I'm making a gradient, so I don't care if there's a little blue, especially because I'm doing the part down here where it's gonna mix into the blue. So this is that phthalo green that I told you makes a beautiful, beautiful turquoise teal. I know it doesn't look like that right now, but just wait. So I'm putting on, you know, fairly good coverage here again, especially down here where it's getting close to the blue, so I can blend it. And this one, so notice I did about bottom 1/3 the ultramarine blue, middle phthalo green, and I'm gonna go almost all the way up to the top with my phthalo green. Oop, it looks like I'm gonna probably have to pour some more of that out, because I'm using this by far more than anything else at this point. And I don't care if it's getting a little thin now that I'm up here at the top, because now what I want to do is I'm going to dip into that lemon yellow. That's of the two yellows. That's the one that has the slight green. Well, now it really has green because my brush put a little in there. But notice how the cad yellow is like slightly on the warmer tone, orangey side. So that'd be great for mixing up the orange in the body of the octopus, but not so great for making the background. Okay, so you're probably thinking, what is that hot mess? That does not look great. Well, that's because now we're gonna make it yummy. I'm gonna dip into the white, and you may need to put a couple squirts of the white out because we're gonna use a fair amount of that. While it's still wet, I wanna get in there as quick as I can and start mixing the white in, and watch what happens. I think it's so pretty. It makes this pretty, pretty gradient of turquoise teal tones. See, I'm just adding white, touch of water, back and forth, back and forth. Obviously, I need to do better on getting to my edges. I'm kind of just doing the middle there, but I wanted you to see real quick what the jam is. So then I start here. And notice, you probably can't see it. I'm dipping into my water, just a touch, then dipping back into my white. So there's enough on there to get it flowing. And again, I don't care if there's a little green mixing into my blue and blue mixing into my green, blah, blah, blah. That is the whole point. We want a beautiful, beautiful gradient going dark to light. And I'm trying to do these really big, fast, loose, long strokes, just so that I don't have like I don't have this kind of brush stroke stoppage thing, right? That doesn't look so great for the water. I don't even know if that's showing up, but quick, big strokes help it be blend kind of more liquid, which is what we want, right? For a beautiful, beautiful water situation. All right, I got to pour myself a little more white. All right, notice, like I said, I'm trying to not have sort of the stop brush strokes, but if there's some kind of interesting, weird spots with the white, kind of creating these little, oh, I don't know what we're even gonna call them, just little spots or light places where it's not a perfect blend. I don't mind that. I actually love that. I think that looks a little bit more like the ocean with all its interesting colors and lights popping through. All right, so I did use the ultramarine blue, the slightly purpler blue on the bottom. Kind of did differently than what I told you at the beginning, right? About I didn't choose the cooler blue tone. I went for the warmer one just so that I would have a little more interest here. I mean, because it's still blue, so I still know it's going to blend okay with green. I just thought that would give it a nice, a little bit darker edge and look like our octopus is kind of floating down to the surface. So that's why I did that, but I do still have that cerulean blue on hand. I did, however, look at my palette and realize that, oops, somehow I forgot to squeeze that one out. I don't know. I guess I was focused on the colors I wanted to use. So I'm going to put the cerulean that I also had over here. I'll put it just under this one. Look at that. See how much lighter it is. I don't know that I need it in this situation. If you look at your canvas and you think it looks awesome, luscious, you love this color. This is my favorite color, by the way, the turquoise, the teals. You can be done if you like it. Just leave it, let it dry. It's not going to take too long for it to dry for me where I live because it's pretty dry here, fairly warm. I won't have to let it go long, but I did just squeeze this blue out. So let's just see what happens if we want. Ooh, that's kind of pretty to put just a little bit of that in there too. So up to you. This is kind of one of those optional steps. Honestly, this whole background is almost optional if you just want to do a pretty blue or a pre-mix a teal by just mixing phthalo, green, and white together on your palette beforehand so it's even. You absolutely can. Totally up to you. But I'm gonna, yeah, I think I'm liking that. Only spot I don't like is there's maybe too much texture for me over on this edge, just a little bit. So all I did was wet my brush. I didn't put any other paint on it. Just wet it a little. Ooh, drip, but I can catch it. And this helps it just kind of stay wet enough that I can keep blending it, because acrylics, they will dry on you pretty quick if you're not somewhere humid. All right, let me get just a touch more of that cerulean that I pulled out. The cerulean is kind of a good in between the greens and the darker ultramarine blue. Okay, I think I like what I got going on. So I'm gonna leave it. This is gonna be one of those awesome pause breaks. Go talk to your friends, go refill your water, change. You don't necessarily need to change it, but you might want to. If it's looking really, really blue, it can be good, especially because our next step will be white and then yellows and brighter orange colors. Actually, yeah, you should probably change your water because you're gonna be working with the opposite spectrum. You're gonna be working with lights and warms instead of darker blues. So change your water, squirt out any more paint you might need, but we're pretty much done with blue now. I mean, unless we need to do some touch-ups in a little bit. But your background is done. You just want to let it dry. And the reason I didn't draw the octopus first and go around it is that would just be such a pain in the butt, right? Especially with all his, you know, awesome arms going everywhere, tentacles. I think that's the word I was looking for earlier, right? Tentacles. Thank you. Thank you, brain, for finally figuring that out. Yeah. That would just be so annoying to draw him out and then have to like fill it in around. I guess if you're using just a super plain flat teal and you're not doing any gradient work, no blending, you can totally do that, but it's still going to be slow and annoying. Oh, I love doing it this way. Again, I get the freedom. I can do those big, long brush strokes. I can blend. I can get this kind of fun texture, water stuff. And the trick here is that I just have to let it sit now. I can't tell you how long, because again, it depends on, are you painting inside? Are you painting outside? Are you painting in a tropical environment? Are you in the middle of Nevada right now? And is it dry? And is it cold? Is it hot outside? Colder weather, it's going to take longer to dry. Hotter weather, quicker, obviously, especially with acrylics. Acrylics are basically just plastic in paint form. So think about that. You're letting this sort of wet liquid form plastic dry. But yeah, pause. I'm hoping mine will take, say, 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes. I don't think too much more than that. And then we can start painting our octopus. And look at that, our canvas already has good coverage on it. We've already got lovely colors. I think we've made a lot of progress with a few simple steps. So I hope you feel good about that. Enjoy your break, refill your drink, your coffee, your cocktail, your water, whatever it is. Enjoy, and I'll be right back with you when this is dry. Oh, quick tip before I forget. If you have a hairdryer, if you live in one of those climates where it is going to take you a long time for it to dry, just plug your hairdryer and go back and forth, you know, keep it maybe 12 inches away from it or so. But that's another quick way to dry acrylic paints. So something fun, a good trick. Welcome back. My canvas is dry now. How about yours? If you're not sure, you can kind of go like this, like lightly tap, 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 tap. And if you don't get paint on your fingers, you're doing good. It's still going to feel kind of cold. Paint is always cold when it's still drying, and a little bit tacky for sure. But if you're not getting the paint just coming right off on you, you're okay to start painting the next layer. It doesn't have to be like completely, you know, chemically, physically dry. It just has to be dry enough that we can paint the next layer on top. So I have grabbed one of my medium brushes now. I don't want to go for the tiniest detail one because that would just mean it takes forever. But we're about to start drawing this octopus. And I know that might seem like the scariest, hardest part, but I like to keep everything with really basic, simple shapes. I think that's the best way to draw and start blocking in, especially for beginners. And so we're going to just use like circles, ovals, triangles, S shapes, that kind of thing. So because we covered the whole entire canvas with our background color, we now need to sort of block it back out. And I've got white on my brush to do just that. Again, why did we not draw it first and paint around? Well, because that's, you know, kind of just too much of a pain and it takes too long. And this is supposed to be relaxing, right? With white, we can draw the shape and sort of fill it in and sort of block it back out, and then we'll add the color on top. So right now we're just focusing on the shape, so we don't have to worry about color by just using white. And you know what? If our octopus wasn't lighter, in this case, I'm going to go for kind of oranges, yellows, red, pink tones. But if I was doing a dark octopus that's like some deep navy blue or purple or something, I wouldn't have to do the white out, the white out step first. But in this case, we want the bright colors to stay really bright and not be overly affected by the colors underneath them. So we kind of just got to block out our shape again and have a nice white base to paint all those bright yellows, oranges, reds, etc. That way they don't compete with the color behind them. They don't get dulled down by it, but instead we'll have a really beautiful contrast. Okay, so let's get started. So I kind of want to figure out where do I want his head to be. Again, this is kind of what I'm looking at from a previous time. I think off center just slightly is nice. So maybe here's my center. So over here, I'll kind of start my brush. And what I want to do, kind of just make a triangle. And I'm going to make an oval. That's going to be like the big bulbous back part of his head. Kind of like an egg shape over here. And it's as simple as that. Now, of course, it's never quite as simple as that, right? The issue here is making sure you get these kind of about the right size in comparison to each other. This shouldn't be extremely bigger. This shouldn't be extremely bigger. This shouldn't be extremely smaller. This shouldn't be extremely smaller. And when in doubt, it's better though to go smaller because you can always add more, right? Like this, I probably could have made it a little bit bigger. So I can always add more paint to it, but it's going to be a lot harder if I feel like I made it too big. It's going to be a lot harder for me to come back and paint my turquoise around it, especially because I've already blended it and given it the gradient and everything. So you want to avoid that. So make kind of an egg shape and make a triangle shape, but you want to err on small first and then come back and adjust when you need. And this here, this layer does not need to be perfect. Doesn't even need to be all that smooth. Just to sort of start filling the shapes, blocking them out. And yeah. If you have gesso, I think I talked about that briefly when we started, right? That's the kind of block out paint. That's what I repainted this old canvas with to kind of give it a fresh start. If you have that, you can use that. It's probably even better than white paint, but you don't have to have it. If you're sort of starting out, you don't have to invest in a million art supplies. You don't have to get that. It's just kind of better because it could go on a little thicker, and frankly, it's cheaper than the white paint. So for steps where I have to use a lot of white, sometimes I use the gesso. All right, so starting to look about right. Somewhere right around here, around the tip of that triangle, that's where the eye is going to be. So just make yourself like a small circle. Again, err on small because you can always make it bigger later. But just kind of remind yourself about where the eyeball is going to be. And then once you do that, notice how I'm just sort of swooping my brush over and kind of connecting from there to there, right? And again, I think I'm gonna actually want this to be bigger, but I don't want to go too big in case I'm not quite right, because I can always make it bigger later. Okay, so we should have like the back of the head, eyeball, and kind of the beginnings of the front. I think generally they move this way, right? So that'd be back. This is like the eyeballs looking this way, moving this direction. And now what I think is the fun part, the tentacles. Of course, they have 8 legs. If you want to start out though with just 6 or 7, that might be good because a couple of them will be behind here, right? Blocked out, we can't see them. And it's better to have 6 or 7 and then later just add a hint of 1 or 2 than to do, 8 all in one place and it looks funny and not even and spread out. But basically, I'm just going to start making some curls and S shapes. And like I said, I think this is the fun part because you can be kind of creative with it. If you're intimidated by it though, just start with this one. This is a good place to start. And like I said, just kind of do something like that, sideways S. It gets a little thicker back here, meaning wider as it connects to the body. And there you go. And I think the key here is just going to make sure that no 2 look exactly the same. So, don't make them the same. Try different shapes, different swirls, different twirls. But basically C and S shapes will do good for you. And get those tentacles in. That one's almost exactly an S, right? Except kind of cut off at the top where it's connected to the body. Notice here we have this really straight line still from our triangle, but as I'm connecting, I'm kind of curving and rounding edges because there aren't really any straight lines on the octopus at all. Another S. Fitting it in the middle here. Notice I don't care about all this funky texture that I'm getting with the white. I mean, I might just sort of come back and smooth over a little bit so I don't have like ridges drawing into my painting. Even if you do though, you can technically come back with a little bit of sandpaper. Get rid of it if you want, or just make it part of the texture of the octopus. It's not a big deal. Sometimes that's what you have to learn in art, is things are not a big deal if you can find a way to incorporate them, work with them, add them in. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I think that's kind of good for the stuff that maybe is sort of closest to us, facing us. And then we might start seeing things coming out from behind or the sides. And I kind of want to give it that sense of depth where it looks like, you know, this one maybe is coming back out from over here a little. So later I'll kind of give a line, a little shadow, so that we can see this is still the strong sort of front face of our octopus, and this leg isn't coming out of his nose, it's coming out from behind, if that makes sense. Okay, so I've got what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You know, it's the fun and the challenge of figuring out where's my next one going to be. You know what, I think I want kind of one very just chill one right back here. Maybe these two are a little bit close together. That's okay too. I mean, you want to kind of keep them all distinct at their ends probably. But a couple of them could kind of be resting a little closer together. Okay, so now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just double checking. Don't want to get too crazy with it. Where do I want? Do I want this guy flailing around or seeming to move in one direction? I think he's kind of settling, flailing, which means a little bit, arms a little bit of everywhere. I'm gonna smooth this. Okay, I'm thinking we'd see one sort of coming out from behind back here. I'm sort of nervous to put that last one, number 8, because for one, it might be literally back behind here where we can't see it. That'd be the most sense. And then for 2, I don't know, as I progress in this painting, I might feel like there's a, you know, a weird little spot or something feels missing, or maybe I need to cover something up, especially sometimes if you make little mistakes, have drips or things that annoy you. Sometimes it can be really great to be strategic and put something else that's in the foreground, i.e. the octopus, right on top of it. So I think I'm actually going to leave it at 7 because I can always come back if I think maybe I just want another one right there. Or however I want to combine it later, I can come back. But I'd rather not make that decision before I'm quite ready to. Okay, I think our shape of this octopus is looking pretty good. This might be the only point where there's sort of a little more pointiness to our octopus. I'm just kind of smoothing over some of those ridges, patches where my paint went on a little bit uneven or a little thick. All right, I think I need to stop messing with it and move forward. So now we're gonna start pretty quickly right in with the colors on this lovely octopus. And again, you can really choose any colors you want. That's what's fun about the octopus, right? He can change, and different species have sort of different tones, but they all can change their colors. And the key here is to pick a color that you like, that you want, and then have lights and dark tones nearby it and on top of it. So I kind of did this orange base layer, and then notice a lot of highlights in yellow. So I'll work you through that. And then some red tones. And then you'll notice I even have some purples here, kind of work it in as almost like a shadow and an outline in some places. So I'm going to stick to this color scheme because I like it. If you don't, just remember light, medium, dark. Figure out the main color that you want is your medium in this case. Not always, but in this case, whatever you mix that you want, your octopus becomes a medium. And then think about if you have a color wheel or you know your colors a little, hopefully even just looking at the paints the way they're laid out in the set, probably, you know, your next color over into the lighter range is going to be the highlights. Next color over on the other side, darker, will be shadows and texture and all that good stuff. So I'm going to start with an orange, and we didn't have an exact, whoa, sorry, bumping over my camera here. We did not have an exact orange in this particular paint set that I recommended, but we do have that cad yellow that's slightly on the orange side, and then we have the red, right? Not the more magenta pinkish red, but the actually more orangey red. And I'm going to mix up a color or something like that. I'm probably actually going to switch to my bigger brush to mix this because I don't, again, want this to take forever. I like to make my life easier when possible, and I need to mix up a fair amount of this just so I have it and I can put it on and make it go quickly. So I probably am actually going to use up all of this. I dipped my brush in the water, by the way. That's probably what you just heard, a little cling. Just to get it wet enough to kind of keep it moving and flowing. Again, not so wet though that everything becomes watercolor and dripping everywhere. Okay, so now I've got some stuff to work with. You know what? I think I want it just a tiny bit more on the yellow side, so I'm going to squeeze out some yellow. Okay, I got a little more of my cad yellow. And this is just preference here, just mixing up, you know, what you like. So I like these sort of bright saturated colors for this painting. Saturated meaning just, you know, really sort of intense. They're not muted in any way. But if that's not your jam, or you're, you know, maybe trying to make some colors that go with your decor, with your room, whatever, you can totally adjust this. If you want to sort of gray it down, take a touch of that burnt umber, put it in. A little goes a long way though, so just a teeny tiny touch. You can always add more, but you can't undo it, right? So just a teeny tiny touch, and then you can kind of give it a slightly duller tone. If you want it to be more of a sort of pastel, not so, you know, garish and bright like the colors that I always like. But you can always take a touch of white, mix it in too, and then just sort of give it that sort of softer tone. But yeah, I'm happy with my mid-tone color here. So look at that big brush. I'm just going right on top of this outline white shape that I have. Gotta kind of dip my brush in the water again though to keep the paint sort of moving and flowing. Notice it doesn't matter if I'm absolutely perfect about covering it. It doesn't matter if there's some funky texture tones showing through. It's actually just going to add to the realism of the octopus's skin, right? They're not flat tones. They have all these interesting colors and tones within them. So I'm trying to just get all the big parts with my big brush. Makes your life easier to use the brush appropriate to the size. But it'll be harder once I get into the small stuff, tentacles, etc. So in just a minute, I'm going to switch brushes. Okay, switching to a more medium brush. This part is, I'd say, boring but relaxing. So I think I'm just gonna not talk too much while I do it. That way you can hopefully just, you know, relax, feel peaceful as you paint too, or chit chat if you're painting with friends. But yeah, just, you know, switch to whichever brush feels most appropriate for the size of the area you're trying to cover. And it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't know if you can see, but sometimes I'm going just slightly over the lines here. And then you can kind of see the turquoise teal colors in the background showing through just a little bit, but not in a way that looks bad or anything. I'd rather have that slight edge there happening than having some white show. So again, I'll stay quiet for a minute so we can all just relax and enjoy this octopus taco, as they say. I made a mistake, but I have this rag handy. That may be something I didn't say in the beginning about supplies, but like, you know, paper towel or old t-shirt. I got kids, so there's always old t-shirts that they've outgrown that are not, you know, in any kind of shape or form that would make them good hand-me-downs to anybody else. The ones with holes in them. So I grabbed those and I used those. So I just tried to grab that paint real quick before it dried. I wet my rag just a teeny bit with some water. But yeah, if I catch it, it's much easier than coming back trying to mix up the blue or turquoise color. But that can still be done too. You know, there's never the end of the world with painting. You can always fix stuff. Always just add more layers. Yeah, nothing is ever ruined, in my opinion. And if it really ever is, just take that gesso and paint the whole canvas white again and start over. Like I said, you can reuse your canvases. It saves you some money. I feel like that was a little too thick there. When we add the detail, I'll come back and kind of define this space so we can tell what's the end of the bulbous round part of the head, and you know, the fact that this is a tentacle coming out from the other side, not coming straight out of there. Anyway, it looks a little funny right now, but I think once we get to the detail stage, we'll fix that. Okay, got a good base color of orange. I like it. I hope you're liking yours. Okay, so next we'll start getting some highlights and some texture. See all these kind of little circles too, make some cool texture, and get some yellow in there. So I want to show you something. I switched to a different medium brush just so I didn't have to worry about cleaning the other one out, although it wouldn't matter that much since these colors are getting blended kind of together anyway. But here's my cad yellow. And a lot of times acrylic paint tends to be kind of transparent. So here's my cad yellow, and not all, but a lot of acrylic paint, this is what I want to show you, tends to be kind of transparent. See, I'm putting that on and it looks, I think, awesome, but it's not super strong, right? It's almost more just like what you would call a glaze, where you're just sort of slightly altering the color underneath, just kind of like lightening my orange, which is great and sometimes absolutely appropriate and what you want. But I think I want my yellow to show up just a little bit more. Oops, kind of like the example. So I'm going to show you what the trick is for that. Take a little, drop of yellow paint over here, grab some white, and notice how real quickly that becomes lighter and also thicker, more opaque, meaning it's not going to show through as much. So I didn't do so much white that it just became a completely different color, but I put a little bit of white in, and now look at it. Notice that difference? So for me personally, that's a little bit more what I'm wanting in this particular painting. I'm thinking the light's coming from the top, so that's where highlights will be. Kind of want to maybe round this out a little bit more, this connection point between the top of the head and the eyeball area. So yeah, that's my trick. Add a touch of white. I think it's helpful. See if you think it's helpful. I'm now going to switch to one of my smallest brushes. I did that little bit right there because I knew that there's definitely a highlight coming from the sun up there. But after that, I want to switch to my smallest brush because I want to start getting texture. I am just doing circles now. Isn't that kind of fun? And here's the thing. I'm adding texture and detail, but I'm still thinking in terms of lights and darks. And I'm mostly going to keep these yellow circles up in the top spots. Even though I'm over here on the tentacles, I'm going to keep it in places where the light is coming and hitting this bottom area underneath the tentacles, bottom tentacles. They're not going to have yellow highlights. So they're not going to have yellow texture either, because the texture catches the highlight. So circles, they don't have to be perfect. In fact, it's better if they're not. They're all a little different. Sometimes they want to be clustered together. Sometimes probably want to give them some space. And so just have some fun adding yellow circles here and there, keeping more to the top areas of the octopus that would be catching the light. The eye is going to cover a lot of that, but still, I just want to have a little texture underneath for when we put it in to kind of make sure it sort of lives in the same space. Goes with the rest of the body. So again, I'll sort of be quiet now for a few minutes and just do some circles. Hopefully, again, this should be relaxing, easy, and fun. Sometimes I do a little bit more of like a line on the top, say, of the tentacles where I feel like it's really going to kind of catch a highlight. Might make my yellow a little stronger by outlining just slightly. So I'm trying to keep it to the top. I'm not going too far down. Every once in a while, maybe a little something, little wisp of a circle, just to kind of carry the texture through. But mostly just keeping those circles at the top spots. Well, maybe half circles sometimes if can't quite fit them in on a tentacle. It might make some more sense. They're sort of little U shapes or half circles. So this would be kind of casting that all in shadow. Maybe just this little guy might catch a little bit of light from the top. Right there. Right here. Yeah, I like the U shape better there just because it's, you know, sort of barely there. Alright, but this guy, he's behind us, but he's closer to the surface. So kind of give him an outline, some texture, some circles. And this is one of my opportunities to kind of separate this part of the head from the back, from the behind. I don't want this to go too far down though. Sometimes I can just wipe it real quick with a finger. Again, top half where the highlight is catching. I just dipped a teeny bit more white into my yellow just so I could go back into some of these places and make my circles stand out just a little bit more. So just by adding like one little drop of white just made it slightly lighter, slightly more opaque. Okay, I don't want to overdo it. I definitely have a tendency to want to keep going because it's fun and it's relaxing, but we want to keep it, you know, keep it separate. Separate, that is, from the shadow textures and things we're going to add in. So anyway, I'm going to let that sit for a second while I take a sip of my water. All right, welcome back. I got a little refill on my coffee, feeling refreshed. We are going to be doing the next step, which is more texture and color on the octopus's body and also a little shadowing in the process. So here's the example one again. And we're going to put these sort of reddish pink tones in. So in this set, the other red color is a permanent rose, as they call it. So it is a little close to magenta, maybe not quite as close as I would like, but it is a pretty darn good color. And let's see if I can get it on my brush so you can see it. Beautiful, right? So I'm not quite sure if I still want to keep using my medium brush or my small brush here. I'm going to start with the medium, but I might switch to small if I want a little more control and detail. But we're going to do kind of the same sort of brush strokes, little circles like that in the octopus's body. And I'm starting to, you know, overlap some of the lights we just did. That's okay. It gives the octopus more of a full range of color, makes it feel rounded. If you kind of go light, medium, dark, we already had the medium. That was our orange base color. Now we did the lights. Now we're doing the darks. And this should, again, hopefully be a nice, relaxing, easy step. Maybe a little tedious. You got to do a lot of these little circles, but it should be pretty chill and fun and relaxing. All right, so I got some big circles with my brush. These don't quite show up as much as that yellow did at first, partially because I didn't mix anything into this permanent rose kind of reddish magenta color, and so therefore it's going on a little bit more transparent. Like I said, a lot of the acrylics is what we're using here. A lot of them tend to go on a little transparent or see-through, and sometimes you have to add something into them to get them to be a little more opaque. So anyway, I was saying they're not quite showing up that much, but I don't hate that. I love that, actually. It's working really good, especially as I'm kind of mixing in with the previous colors, letting them overlap a little and just creating lots of luscious texture on my octopus. But I am going to switch to my smaller brush just because I like to get a little more control at this point. I might want some of those circles to just be a little bit more defined. See that? There's the difference. With the medium brush, it was just kind of going on a little more thin, and with this I can kind of get those circles really defined with my small round brush. That's what they call the more pointy ones, rounds, not flats. It's not a square. Let's see, maybe one or two up here, kind of where this tentacle would have darker tones. And yeah, I'm just gonna be quiet again for a little bit as I work on this step. Hopefully maybe you guys have some music on hand too, so you can, you know, turn that up on the steps when you don't really need to hear me saying much of anything. And yeah, just kind of follow along, but my general rule is I'm thinking of the the undersides, the darker sides now, the tentacles that are a little more in shadow, are going to see more of the darker circles and texture. And if it's peeking up toward the light, I leave the yellow to sort of show itself off. All right, so have fun making a bunch of little circles. Some little half circles in places where it's hard to fit in whole circles. And I just kind of want them to maybe look like they're, not too perfect. The more not perfect it is, the more natural and organic it's going to look. So definitely don't worry about making perfect circles. Some of mine are almost little squares. Okay, I think that's looking pretty good. I actually want to come back now and start using that same color to sort of outline and define some parts. You can see a couple places I couldn't help myself. I think I got ahead and started doing it as I was doing the circles. But just in some spots, always on the underside, right? Because the light's going to hit the top, not the bottom. We're doing the bottoms now. I'm going to take a little bit of this rose color and just kind of give myself some little shadowy outlines. In some spots, I might use this to make my tentacle just, maybe a scooch longer, because I have my little brush in hand now, and I've noticed that the tentacles often kind of come to a point. They're very skinny at the end. So I'm kind of using this as my chance to add a little extra on to some of them. I haven't forgot that we still just have 7. Haven't quite made up my mind, though, if I want to add any others. Maybe just another little hint of one right here or something. We'll see. Notice how this rose color, it's again a cooler, meaning more sort of blue toned red. When it goes over my blue background, when it doesn't have this area with the white and the orange on it, it shows it through a little, and it actually turns kind of purpley, which is cool. I like it. In fact, I think just a little bit, we're going to mix up some purple too for some shadow colors. So again, I am just thinking about undersides mostly, like, all right, this is definitely kind of a bottom of that tentacle over here. Bottom of this one just helps it pop a little to define that edge along the bottom as it's sort of turning away from us, getting a little shadow. Oh, see, caught it before it dried. And a couple of these spots I mentioned earlier that we were going to have a chance to define them. Well, check it out. Just use that color, pinkish red, to kind of create a line there. So we definitely know that this guy, this tentacle coming out from behind the head. I'm going to do the same thing over here. Okay. I want to kind of outline the bottom of this back sort of circle part of his head just a little bit. Good. I'm pretty happy with it. Hope you are too at this point. Okay, so this next step that I'm going to do is just because I'm looking at mine feeling like it needs something, and it is completely optional. If you're happy with your octopus, the biggest thing to know actually is to stop while you're ahead. Stop while it's looking good. All here. So just if you feel like yours needs a little something to make it pop a bit more. That orange there is dried, just in case you're wondering why I'm mixing right on top of it. I took that permanent rose color. I'm going to take the smallest touch of the blue because that blue is more powerful. Look at that. I still took too much. And notice how quickly it turns that rose into dark purple. I'm going to scoop some more of my purple up. Okay, that's what I wanted. I wanted a nice purpley color. I use my medium brush to mix it because sometimes that makes it a lot faster if you use a bigger brush to mix. But I'm going back to my detail brush, my small round, getting that purple on it now, and I'll show you what I want to do with this. I'm going to come back, and there's some places that I feel like could use a little bit darker, stronger color to define them. Still, I'm trying to stay in the shadow areas. Kind of just like what we were just doing, but with a slightly darker, more powerful color. There we go. Okay, there you go. I just wanted to add a little extra something, as I was saying. Okay, so next step, kind of going to make some similar shapes as our previous steps. We're going to start doing those little suction cup, little circle oval-y things they have on the bottom of their tentacles that latch on and suck onto things. I don't know their official biological name. What I want to do is get a little bit of my white, and I'm going to mix some over here with my ceruleum. Kind of making this light blue. I've noticed that they, I don't know if it's just the way they catch the light underwater or actually physically different colors, but they tend to look pretty different than the rest of the body of the octopus in terms of their color. So I'm going to go for this light blue, and that'll kind of make them pop out, and I think it'll look really cool. So white plus cerulean blue, and then check it out. I am making little sort of flat oval shapes on the bottom sides of the tentacles. And notice I stopped there because now this one's coming out front. It's sort of overlapping, so we'll just see the top of it, and you wouldn't probably see the suckers past that, but you'd start seeing them over here. And you know, these tentacles, they all kind of twist and turn, so sometimes you see these things, sometimes you don't. So it's okay if you don't want to put them on every single tentacle. I'm trying to go with some logic here of where you would see them. Like now it's kind of twisting and turning that way, so I probably wouldn't see them again until I'm over here. But I think in this case, in this painting, you can kind of just get away with putting them wherever you want. Just kind of use your instinct, how many you think look good, how much is your preference, what you like. I mean, I think it just only enhances it to have that extra detail, right? But I don't think you can go too wrong. This is not a photorealistic painting. It's a fun painting. It's got some element of realism. We want it to be recognizable as an octopus. But we're not going for perfection. We're going for bright, beautiful colors. Something that you'll love to take home and put on your wall. Maybe you are already home, right? Anyway, for all the octopus taco fans out there, Tako. So that's what they call it in Hawaii. Again, I am not making perfect shapes, perfect ovals by any means. And again, that actually helps me. Makes it look slightly more realistic and organic. You notice a lot of places where I'm doing these shapes is actually right on top of the previous couple steps, places where I chose to do the darker permanent rose, reds, and some of my purples. Every once in a while I have to dip my brush back in the water, keep the paint on my brush moving and flowing. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I hope you are too. You can take as little or as long time you want on this step. It just sort of depends on your personality and, you know, interest in detail and whether or not you like things to be a little bit, you know, wiggly wobbly. I feel like mine are, but kind of the impressionist version of these suction cup tentacles. Or if you like to sort of focus in and maybe do it a little bit cleaner with a little bit more detail. Totally up to you. But yeah, I'm done with my stuff. I think it looks pretty decent. And now we just have really a couple details we got to do to finish up this octopus and get him all done, ready to hang on your wall. All right, so for one of our final steps here, we need to get the eye in. That'll just bring it to life. That really gives it all the personality, is getting that eyeball in. So what we need to do is mix up a black. I kind of mentioned earlier that we could do that. And then I like giving him kind of the same color as the background color, a little kind of turquoise around the eyeball, and then a white highlight. This can go cartoony if you want it to be cartoony and make it really cute. Maybe you're doing this for a kid's room, make a bigger eye. It's super cute that way. Or if you want it to be more realistic, probably a little smaller, probably smaller even than I did here. Make it a little less cartoony looking. It'll look more realistic. Feel free again to pull up your phone, look at pictures of real octopuses. And you'll see that, you know, their eyes aren't that different than ours. So you can still kind of do the same basic thing. Dark in the middle, color around, white highlight. That's what I'm going to do here. But again, you can adjust as you see fit. Okay, so I'm grabbing my medium brush again because, like I said, that's easier for mixing. Let me show you how to get that black. So let's see, I'll go down here so you can see. I'm getting my umber color that came in the set. I'm gonna get a little blue because that's my other dark color here. Notice it's already getting quite dark, like a dark gray. And next I just need a little of that phthalo green. Ran out though, so I gotta squirt that out here. All right, back with the phthalo green on my palette again. Look at that green plus umber. Now I put a little too much green. That's okay. It's all sort of just a process, adjusting back and forth till you get it right. The reason you have to do the blue and the green with this umber color is because it's on the warm side of things. It's closer to red than any other color of the primaries, that is. So we got to kind of neutralize it. So I'm getting my umber back here. And now it's just looking too green. So I'm going to come back with some blue. All right. It's not true black, but for just needing a little tiny bit, this is all you really need. Okay, so I've got my dark that I've just mixed up on my medium brush. I know this is a little scary, but it's okay. I'm just gonna kind of make a little circle right here in the middle of where his eyeball is. That's all I gotta do, and leave that alone. Put my brush in the water. And then I'm gonna come back with the color for around the eye. And you know, if you have stuff left over from the background still mixed up and wet on your palette, you can totally just use that. For me, I'm gonna take my cerulean and mix a little bit of the phthalo green into it, and maybe even pick up some of this lighter stuff that I had used for the suckers on the tentacles. It's really just whatever you want here. You could make his eye totally different color. But yeah, I'm liking that. And now, with my small brush so I have a little more control, I'm just going to kind of go around. It doesn't really matter that the black, quote unquote black, my black, is still wet. As long as I put this on thick enough, won't hurt it too much. Okay. Kind of like that. I think that's good. I'm going to leave it. I will let it dry before I do that white highlight on it. Ooh, you know what? It could look kind of cool. I'm just going to dip a little of my ultramarine blue in and maybe just even give him a little bit of extra color in there. You know, human eyes are like that too. Sometimes they have slightly different tones with them and within them. Pick up different colors surrounding them too. All right. Okay, now I'm happy with it. All right, we only have 2 real steps left. When I say that, I mean because 2 steps plus the third and last is just always come back and touch up anything that bugs you. So there's always that too. But only 2 steps left in my step-by-step process. And that's that white highlight where the eye needs to dry first. And then some other yellow highlights to just come back to those lighter parts that we did earlier, but really pop them in some places where they need to be popped now. So, switching, I'm going to clean my medium brush real good, especially since I'm going from blues back to yellows, darks back to light. Clean it off, get my palette, get this. Notice, I think I only used a tiny bit of that lemon yellow earlier. Probably didn't even really need it for this painting. Anyway, I am now going to do the more opaque yellow, the lighter yellow, meaning a lot of white in here. And it'll be really strong for highlight. Okay, now I want to switch back to my small brush. I've noticed, you know, paintings tend to go in a certain order with the brushes. I do the big brush first, then there's a lot of work with the medium brush as you sort of fill in the medium shapes, and then at the end you're pretty much always using the small brush. All right, so I've got my smallest brush, the yellow plus the white on it, and I just want to come back. Ooh, I had a little too much paint on my brush. Sometimes if it's too clumpy on your brush, what you do is you just take it and sort of roll it. See how I'm kind of rolling it that way? And that still has a decent amount of paint on it, but then it's not all in like one clump. So that's just a little trick if you have that issue like I just did. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of highlight the eyeball, dipping a little more paint. With the small brush, you usually have to dip it back and forth a lot. Maybe a little highlight there. A little more here to really help define that section of the body differently from the tentacle behind it. Maybe this guy because he's up closer to where the sun would be coming through at the top of the water. Nice strong highlight in him. Same for this one. Same for the back part of the head. Again, that helps kind of pull that out and define it from that other tentacle back there. Notice sometimes I kind of just stop and start with my lines. They don't have to be perfect. Again, it's going to look more natural, normal, organic if it's not perfect, because nature doesn't have those completely perfect circles and lines. I mean, sometimes it does, but not really on this octopus. This also might give me a chance to sort of fix anything I've had issues with in the drawing. Like, felt like that was just a little too funky. Right there, the eyeball was just still a little too pointy of a transition as it connected to the rest of the body. Okay, I am getting there. I'm starting to like this bad boy. This highlight here can kind of help define these two legs where this one and that one kind of overlap. So don't go too crazy. Don't outline the whole thing. You'll actually ruin the effect if you do. You want to do sort of the same but opposite of what we were doing with that permanent rose when we did the shadow areas and kind of cleaned up and highlighted, outlined. We're doing highlights now, that was shadows. But we sort of outlined some of the tentacles on the bottom side, and now we're sort of outlining them a little bit on the top where they might catch some light. Kind of doing that same thing I did earlier too, where maybe this helps me bring a couple of the tentacles a little bit more to a point. All right, but I'm pretty happy with this. All right, only one step left to go. All right, believe it or not, in those 5 minutes, that eyeball should be at least halfway dry because these are acrylic paints. Again, depends on where you are, weather, temperature, etc., etc. But acrylics dry so much quicker than oils. So anyway, it should be dry enough that I can find a little piece of my white that's still not been touched by other colors I've been mixing. Get it on my small brush. I cleaned my brush, of course, first real good before I did this. Cleaned my tiniest brush out, got some white. I'm kind of putting it over here, testing, making sure it's pretty much a pure white, rolling my brush around so it's not too clumpy. So I have just a little bit of white on it, and I have enough to kind of keep control of things. And now, just want to do a little dot, something like that. I picked up a little blue that wasn't 100% dry, but it doesn't bother me. Again, kind of makes it look more natural, but I might come back with some more white. There we go. I would say my only issue with it is that I feel like between that white highlight and the blue colors, it kind of ate up all the middle black pupil. There's hardly any black that can be seen again. So I just washed my brush off real good, got some more black on my brush, and I'm going to see if I can come back and just, without having to ruin and redo my highlight again, just add a little more black back here. There. Done. Anything else we need to do? Oh, I see one area, 2 areas that I would like to come back and do. So I lied, a couple more steps, I guess, but they're the same colors. There's just some details that now I remember that I would have liked to add in. Okay, for one, clean my small brush out real good. Came back, got that color we were just using previously, the white plus the yellow. I think I just want to kind of like do a little highlight there, like the bottom of the eyelid almost. There, that looks better to me. And then I just remembered they always have this thing right here. I don't know what that is called officially, if it's sort of gills where they kind of output some air. I'm not sure, but you can see it kind of hinted at there. We don't, again, need to get into too much detail here. We're kind of more like decorative artists or impressionists here than we are realists. But I do think that's a fairly important part of the octopus you always see. So I'm actually going to go back to that purple color I mixed up earlier. Remember, it was the permanent rose plus the blue, the ultramarine blue. And I ran out, so I got to mix it up again. Permanent rose plus ultramarine blue, making a little purple for me. Okay, got it. And here's the trick to doing this. That little circle, gill, whatever it is, mouth maybe? No, it's not the mouth. But it's always right here where the circle part of the head connects to the rest of the body. And you just kind of take this up like this, make an oval. That's really all you gotta do. I might take my purple and see if I can kind of connect it in a couple more places just to tie it in a bit better. Maybe come back to some spots where tentacles and other things covered it up. So this is part of the process. There's always something. You're always like, oh, I'm done. Oh, wait, no, I'm not. I forgot this or that. Got kind of a little ridge in my paint. Just gonna kind of smooth that out a little bit. And then sometimes, depending on how big you made this, sometimes there's like another little smaller kind of circle within it. It's one of those things where you might just have to look up the picture of that octopus. And now I feel like mine is sort of standing out too much, like it's a distraction, which I don't love. So I'm going to actually come back and remix my midtone, which is something you might need to do at this stage, especially if you're fixing anything that went wrong. But I'm taking my yellow, my cad yellow, with my teeny touch of my cad red, trying to mix up that original orange we used. And now that I have it, I can use it, kind of go back in here where I feel like I overdid that purple. Okay, I think this octopus is done. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're happy with your painting. Feel free though to, keep touching it up for as long as you want, or just, move on and be done. Sometimes that keeps things kind of fresh and fun to not overdo them and not overthink them at the end. So, yeah, but thanks for painting with me today. I love this painting. I love painting the octopus. It's really fun, and I hope you felt the same way.